Hi Digital Chiefs, welcome back. So if you're familiar with this style of video, we're going to go through about as many slides as I possibly can in half an hour and give you a roast or toast score. So far the last set of these were really bad. Fingers crossed these ones are a little bit better. Roast means they will just get deleted. It's a thumbs down. And toast means it's relatively good. It will likely move to the next meeting. Okay, first up. Straight away, very simple looking first slide. However, I've already caught a little bit of a formatting issue. The phone number on the bottom is attached to the LinkedIn URL. So make sure you guys that you get someone to proofread. Not a great first impression. Also, there are 2 email addresses on here. I don't typically recommend putting 2 email addresses because if an investor wants to contact one of the founders, they don't really know which one and it just takes too long to type both. There's no titles as well for these email addresses, no first name, last name. And so I'm a little bit confused already who is who in the Zoom. Whose phone number is this? It's very clear it's a mobile number. I think dates are okay on a slide deck. However, if you are sending it out and it's taking you a bit of time to actually raise, then make sure the dates are updated or just remove the date. Pain points. These pain points are not quantified. It is a very simple looking slide deck. Stock images on the right side don't really tell me a ton in terms of adding to what the pain point is. Some of these sentences already also don't really make a ton of sense. This one seems to be focused on helping property developers find and develop sites quickly. So that's good. I've understood very quickly by the third slide what it is. Still not great into the third slide that I understand it, but it's not terrible. I'm not a fan of these cartoon images. Not sure they add a ton of value to the slide deck. And they kind of look really complicated. They could simply made it 1 or 2, 3 words. That would have been a better approach. It's great that they've added the person who's the founder. However, I've already said in the past, years of experience don't tell me a ton. And they would have been better off telling me what actual projects they've worked on, the companies they've worked on, the size of the deals. The photo itself is not terrible. It's well presented. They're in a suit. Colors are a little off, but it's fine. It's not really doing a ton in terms of telling me why you are really good at leading, why you're optimized to lead the company. So this is great that it's got really 3 quick steps: screen, qualify, and offer. So I assume the platform itself can actually make purchasing offers as well. This sentence for the due diligence is a little bit confusing. I can see it's a dashboard, it's a funnel, some sort of sharing the due diligence process. There's no graphics to show how it works. It's okay if a system is a little bit complex, but in that case, try and explain it with diagrams better than text. So it does financing as well. Was not part of the 3-step process. It's got due diligence, qualify, and then financing. It's got data as well. There's just too much stuff going on. They've got some sort of wireframe structure going. They're talking me through the process of how they're pivoting, but I don't see any data on the results. I don't see the number of people they've tested with, what kind of people they are. I don't know what kind of characteristics of these customers and potential testers are. A lot of this is just irrelevant for me as an investor. I don't see where you're going to quickly make revenue, how quickly you're going to get to $1 million, how quickly you're going to get to 10x. The last names are the same, so I assume they're brothers or somehow related, family doing business together. You know, sometimes it works out well, sometimes it doesn't. It can be a risk or it can be a positive. Already I'm registering as a potential risk. They've really emphasized that they're missing a technical co-founder. They've said that several times in the slide deck. They're looking to raise to fill that gap, but it just seems like they're overemphasizing an area that they're lacking as opposed to emphasizing the areas they're really, really, really good at. Finally, we get to the amount they're looking to raise. It's $200K initially and then $1 million at the seed stage. But again, I don't see a business model. They're asking for money. There's no actual journey to profitability. I also don't see a go-to-market strategy. There's a bunch of appendices, market data, data. There's no quote of where this market data has come from. It's also too many, like worldwide. Just concentrate on Australia. Give me the go-to-market strategy instead. This is not that helpful given that I also don't understand how you're going to sell to each of these different profiles. Originally, I thought it was just developers, but you've also added real estate agents in here. Oh, finally, I can see an app. I was wondering if it was an app or if it's a dashboard. Product like this, it sounds like it would be better as a dashboard product rather than an app. It does sound like it will manage the entire purchasing and offer process and due diligence process as well. So I'm a little bit confused about the execution of this particular idea. Go to market slide, not a ton of substance. It just talks about the phases of your marketing. It doesn't tell me the target number of people that you're hoping to bring on board in those phases, and again the target revenue. Business model canvas, don't put that in your slide deck. This is too much information, and frankly it just kind of looks like you're lazy to distill that information for the investor. This one is still very much a roast. It would still to me be a -2 to -4, mainly because it's quite incoherent. There's a ton of images and colors in there that don't make a lot of sense and don't add value to the slide. So investors will tend to mark you down for wasting their time. However, on the plus side, it is a little bit more simplified. There's a lot less text. I can understand roughly the sector, at least what they're hoping to achieve. I don't see any mock images of the product itself, or it's really, really small, and I question the actual execution strategy in itself. So this one is in the payment space. It's not graphically nice. It doesn't even have a opening title slide. It's got some numbers though. They've got revenue, they've got transactions, so that is already a little bit of a plus. They've got a number of customers as well, and they've got a sales pipeline. It's just graphically not particularly appealing, but you know what? It ticks some of the boxes in terms of it's got revenue. There's some traction here. I would keep opening these slides. I've already sort of revealed a little bit of a tip here. It's great that a slide deck looks nice, but if it doesn't have numbers, if it doesn't speak in the language of investors who are looking to make a return, then we're going to stop clicking. It's great to see some problem statements here, but they're not quantified. I don't know the size of the problem. So it's very clear it's a crypto transfer business. They've jumped into the ask. They're looking for 700K via a safe note. They've already got quite a bit of their round raised, only 300K left. So there is a little bit of momentum to this business, which again is a plus. And they've got some great targets in terms of the revenue that they're looking to achieve by the end of the year, 23 in this case, and the net profit. I don't really understand how they're going to get to the net profit, given that I haven't really been given a business model yet and a compelling go-to-market strategy. However, there are numbers in here. There's numbers in terms of their valuation. I wouldn't put the valuation into a slide deck yet because the volume doesn't sound like it'll justify an 18 million valuation. However, you know, it's intriguing. If you're giving me a pre-money valuation and it's not really obvious how you're achieving those figures, as an investor, I'm a little bit on the negative end. 100K monthly net profit, I'm not sure how these numbers get translated, but again, it's a very, very lean deck. Then it moves on to the team slide. More years of experience, not that compelling, but at least they've got some keywords in here that are relevant to this particular blockchain, crypto, the number of products launched by this particular CPO, the amount of money they're raised. I'm a little bit confused. I assume they're part-time, otherwise they're working on a ton of stuff. And that makes me question, well, are they focused on this business or are they focused on the 50 other businesses they've been working on? This team slide could be a lot better. I feel like there is a ton of substance in this team in terms of they've got a ton of experience, but the stuff that is listed under each profile doesn't really show me that it's a strong team. I can see there's something in this team, but it's not telling me the substance of the team. However, some of them do have numbers on the amount of money they've raised, but it also brings up a ton of questions as well. So this slide is really about how you know the subject matter really well and the outcomes you were able to produce in a similar sector. That proves out your expertise for this particular business. There's little bit too many random things in here. I'm a huge cat lover. CTO has an image with a cat in it. I think that's fine, but I think you could do better in terms of keeping the images very, very professional. It's also just a little bit inconsistent. The images, to me, don't make it look like a team. It doesn't look like a uniform unit. At MVP stage, totally okay, but they're producing revenue already. At least kind of try and keep the styles consistent and focused on telling the story around how this is a team unit and really how each person feels in a particular gap. Another thing why this sounds to me like a scattered team as well, confirmation of that is that the bottom bit actually tells me a bunch of regions they're all in and they seem not connected. I'm a big fan of global teams. I've been working remotely for 10 years on global teams, but we still look like a unit. Give me a global perspective, but concentrating on a key area and a key problem. I do question how this team works really, really well together in multiple locations. To me, typically this has not worked very well. I think this one would be a toast just marginally, only because it has put in some numbers. It has intrigued me in terms of, hey, they're making revenue. How are they making revenue? There is some experience in this team. It would probably just be a 1 in terms of being a toast. It just would slip through. There are a ton of gaps here, but you can see here that are not very well designed particular pitch deck that has revenue, that has traction, that has momentum, that has a team with a little bit of experience, but a ton of problems still. It would be intriguing enough to get to a point of possibly getting a meeting, particularly if you're already in the crypto space, if you're already in this financial space. I have some interest in this area, so I'm intrigued to pick up the phone and get on a quick 15 to 20 minute call with them. If you're not in that space, then it probably wouldn't appeal to you to do that, but it is marginally a yes. Just looking ahead, it is unlikely to actually raise a ton of capital from someone like me personally. Obviously, it's already raised some cash, and it looks like it will probably be able to raise it given that the team's mostly men and of a certain demographic, and as a result they probably have that network. They're able to raise relatively quickly for a hot and fast running cryptocurrency, which at the moment is quite a hot topic. They're not raising a ton as well and already producing revenue, so the numbers kind of make okay sense. And so I can see some young enthusiastic angel investors being okay with parting their money. I'm probably a little bit more conservative in that I like a lot more of a thought out story, but I still would jump on a call with them and how that particular meeting pans out. However, it is just very borderline yes. Okay, last one for today. Let's see if we can make it a second toast. So productivity assistant, straight away I can tell it is an app, so that's a good start. Problem statement, a bit too much text. Again, I'm not seeing quantities and size of problem. I'm seeing problem statements, but not really telling me how big a problem it is, how much the gap is to make money. I feel like there's a ton of stuff out there for productivity apps, and so it really would have to grab me in terms of what is it focusing on the early onset, given it's such a saturated space. Bloated phone screen. I don't feel like you need to put this into text. Like the screen on the left side, everybody has a bloated home screen these days. A lot of this stuff you don't need to put in text, get to the point really quickly. So it's an app that helps you manage a bloated screen. The contradiction is a little bit funny here. I'm trying to clear out the number of apps I got, except you're giving me another app. So it's a planner, task management tool. I don't really see straight away how this is compelling. There's just so much other stuff out there that is very AI driven. I don't know how this is really very automated. Product, good to see screenshots of the actual product itself. This is probably the first slide deck out of the 6 that I've shared actually have product images and clear ones. I'm not sure I understand how this is different. UX wise, it looks a little nicer, or UI, it looks a bit prettier. This just looks like another messaging app. I don't understand why this is a better productivity assistant. So is the key thing here, it's all integrated. It does look simpler. It's got a freemium model. I feel like this is all jumbled. It's got features and then it's got pricing model together. It's a little bit complicated for a productivity app. It feels like I've got to do so much just to get it running. This is a terrible competition slide. It's on a slide bar. I've never seen this before. It's too complicated. Does a slide bar mean that yes, it does half of it? It does 70% of it? Too hard for me to work out. Repeated the business model. I already saw that it was a freemium model. You can see straight away what investors look at. They look at the money and they can see the business models on a page very quickly. Way too many revenue sources. This is not looking like it's going to help me in productivity. It sounds like it's going to go in the opposite direction. And the goal is to be a unicorn company in 5 years. Please don't put that stuff in unless there's a really clear narrative of how you're going to get there. This traction slide could have been 3 key points. Too much text in here. What have they built? How many users they've brought on board? What's been the actual result? Paying customers, non-paying customers. This traction slide also seems to include the fundraising component. What do they need to do next? And what they're raising for. It's a little bit all over the place. There's some stock images in here that I'm just not a fan. Images that are specific to the product, to the team, put them in. If your goal is to make it look really pretty, just limit how much you do of that. This could have been done just without stock images and simplifying a lot of the text. So this is a classic example of a terrible go-to-market slide. It's got a massive age range for the target customer. It's everyone and anyone. I mean, if you're going after 15 to 60-year-olds, are they beauty professionals? Are they consultants? Are they coaches? Anyone who's 15 is obviously not a coach. So this narrative doesn't make any sense. And then they're hoping to target it on social media. Everyone says social media is a channel. How are you effectively using the channel? And the third time, they're putting in the word freemium in the model. This is the third time I'm reading it. Because they've explained the go-to-market strategy so badly, the market slide is then not going to make a ton of sense. They've put in very generic market comparative competitor market data. They've extracted it from very big successful companies and made that the compelling component of their market size. Don't really understand the connection between targeting solo consultants. How does this relate back to this market size? Inconsistent narrative, not well thought out. Future revenue channels. Because the early part doesn't make sense, this part also doesn't make sense. They're hoping to bring in a bunch of businesses to service these particular users, which sounds to me kind of like a WeChat, except the problem is because they've not really focused on a certain demographic to start with. It sounds to me like it's quite scattered. They're just going to focus on getting consumers on board, but you don't know what the consumers want. This to me is way too preemptive and tells me that they're quite a unfocused and distracted team on the execution plan. This team slide, everybody puts in the years of experience, but they don't tell me what kind of projects and the size of the projects they've worked on in the past. Out of the 6 slides I've gone through, there was only one slide that had some numbers to quantify their experience. A couple of the companies the founder has worked on has been acquired, so that's great, but it's a little bit lost on me. It's something you have to dig through in the text. University degrees, unless it's a top tier university, I wouldn't put it in, frankly. I just feel like it's filling a lot of space. A lot of the stuff in the profiles is also not tangible. I guess for me, being very analytical, I like stuff quantified. I like stuff qualified. A lot of this is very superficial. What defines a remarkable coder? Someone who's a perpetual student dreamer. Nice, super fluffy things, but it doesn't really tell me why you guys are the best team to invest in for this particular product. Financial projections, given the information around the target market and the business model, to me wasn't very clear. There's no validation for a lot of these projections. I probably missed it, but I don't actually see the revenue model, like how much you're charging per person. There are some numbers here, but it's too hard for me to work out how you're going to get to $1 million in revenue. It's 50K paying users, but to me, that doesn't sound right. Not everyone who's a user is going to be purchasing. These numbers don't make a ton of sense based on my skim reading, and definitely based on their go-to-market strategy as well. They're looking to raise 600K on a safe. Without telling me too much of a breakdown of where the money is going to be spent. They're focused again on describing the business model, but not where they're going to spend the money, i.e. how much of it is going to development, how much of it is going to sales, what's the split. They predicted $1 million in revenue in a year after launch. When's the launch date? What does 600K develop? It says it's product development. How long will that take? And it's 1 million after launch. None of this sounds realistic and possible with this particular team. And so it's definitely a toast. It is a strong toast in terms of the fact that I'm not convinced that this particular product has a place in the market. It is quite saturated. It didn't really talk through the competitor analysis with a strong argument and a strong business case. The revenue, target market, all of that was just a mess. This one would probably still be a -2 in terms of a toast. Definitely not a meeting.